will square off again in a Elite Eight matchup, this time as a rematch of last season's national championship. To get there, LSU had to play an epic game versus UCLA. Flau'jae Johnson with her best game as a Tiger in her 2 years in Baton Rouge. We'll talk about that. Kim Mulkey responding not to the Washington Post piece that just turned out to be a bio, really. I mean, it was a deep dive bio. Knowing Kim Mulkey, I kind of get why she wanted, why she was kind of crusading against this. And there was some things that once she called for the story and had her lawyers go over it, there was some things that was taken out of that story. That the gist of it, though, was, just a in-depth look at why she is who she is, right? I mean, like the relationship between her dad and her brother, who we told you that was going to be in the piece last week. While not necessarily do I believe it's a lot of our business. This writer in Kent Babb decided to dive in and kind of get to where Mulkey's from, the relationship between her and her family.
That is very strange that a reporter would want to dive into somebody's personal life, like with their family. That's almost like the Aaron Rodgers situation with his brother. Like, nobody ever talks about that because that's a family issue. Like, leave it at that. Like, that's what it is. I don't understand why somebody would want to do that.
The reason why Mulkey is the target, like she has been over the last couple of years, is because she's outspoken and she's got a big personality. And she's not going to shy away from the microphone. But the point always goes back to it's political. And this is nothing but a political, I would say, hit piece, but I would point that more towards the LA Times article that came out. But, I mean, when you're in the Washington Post and you're on that type of platform and you're talking about a coach fat-shaming players, what do you think sports is built off of? I mean, how would any coach direct any team to win that wasn't in shape? And for it to start to spin like that, you could see that this was nothing but okay, like you want to dive in, you want to tell me where she's from, but then you're going to bring on examples like, the one that I just pointed out, and then to the Brittany Griner situation and the sexism in the locker room. I mean, all of that stuff has been talked about. Mulkey has recognized it. She's talked about it publicly. It was like we said last week, what were you going to learn about the story? And, I mean, knowing just bits and pieces of the family background, I didn't know a lot of it because, again, a lot of that is, I don't feel like any of my business. And in reading it, I to a degree kind of understand why Mulkey may have not wanted that stuff out there. And being on a public platform like she is, somebody who is accessible and is open for criticism and compliment because of her job, the writer, the author has the right to do that. But I mean, if you're going to do those types of pieces, I feel like those could be done on the majority of that trade. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Those are just my thoughts on it. It was like we said last week. I didn't think that we were going to learn anything once we read it, and after reading it, I didn't. And for Kent Babb to get the attention that the story got, congratulations. But I think even the public or the feedback outside of Baton Rouge, outside the inner circle of the LSU women's basketball fan base, it's kind of a dud. It was kind of a dud story, really.
He got his clicks.
That it was built up to be, right? I mean, and in today's world,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of the game, is just not do a lot of work, get a lot of hype, build it up. I mean, if that took 2 years to write, I mean, it's a hell of a lot of time spent wasted. I would imagine. I mean, 2 years for that, I would expect it to land on the moon after 2 years. I mean, it felt like we crash landed in the Atchafalaya. I mean, it was like,
damn.
I mean, it didn't really hit. We missed the mark.
I had the spaceship.
You know, I mean, like, we got a lot of clicks. You know, I mean, we dominated the Saturday.
They thought we were aliens,
but I mean, it just didn't work out. And then for her team to respond in the way that it did, and we'll get to the LA Times article. And it was a bad weekend for a lot of media members this weekend. A lot of people who were waiting on this story to be this I told you so. I mean, the Pat 40 circling the wagons are circling around Kim Mulkey. And then to have that story. I mean, can we all agree that Pat 40 has lost all of his credibility? And to think where 40 was to where he is now, like, putting that type of tweet out last week, really undermining Kent Babb and his story, you know, like talking about it's coming out and wagons are circling, building up, like, okay, well, this thing better be a monster. And then for it to, you know, land the way it did, for the crowd that is dying to take down Mulkey and LSU, it really kind of spun back in their face. And now LSU has become the villain, but almost a beloved villain, if that makes any sense. Where it's like you got people out there saying, I don't necessarily know what that piece was about. And then the LA Times article that comes out and calls them dirty debutantes, and Mulkey has the press conference following the win that really just kind of cut. I mean, the LA Times had to go back and like redo they had to redo the article. And at the top of the article, Ben Bolch is this guy's name. Bolch had to type in an editor's note, the original version of this commentary did not meet the Times editorial standards. It has been edited to remove language that was inappropriate and offensive. We apologize to the LSU basketball program and to our readers. It's like, don't apologize, Ben. Like, in all honesty, thanks. Like, thanks for being such an incompetent, insensitive, out of touch, sexist jerk. Like, thanks for showing exactly who you are so LSU could use it as fuel to go beat the brakes off of UCLA in the Sweet 16 to advance to the Elite Eight. I mean, you had so many people just couldn't wait to take down LSU. You had the head coach retweeting the story over the weekend. I mean, like, great work for you to just show exactly who you are and not have like the decency or even the intelligence to go back and proofread that story and say, maybe not. You know, like, this is, even for the LA Times standards, I mean, there was people around journalism, and I know that newspaper, this is as much attention as a newspaper has gotten, and it feels like a decade with the Washington Post and the LA Times. But to LSU, for it to spin it and be able to use it as incredible motivation, obviously, to take down the Bruins and set up this matchup today that you almost feel unworthy of it to be on this weekend. I mean, it feels like it should be a Final Four matchup between LSU and Iowa, but now here you are with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, the headliners, once again in this rematch as two of the top scoring teams in the country. You've got the best scorer in college basketball and Caitlin Clark. And, you've got arguably the best team that will tip it off this afternoon. I mean, it's going to be I can't wait to get to this game. I mean, it was, a year and a game last year that was classic. And then for it to now come down to this with what's on the line and the feeling going into the game, I mean, it's as must-watch of a college basketball game as I can remember around here. I mean, not only will all of Louisiana be locked in, obviously, because LSU being in the game, you can feel that the country is talking about this matchup. And, not necessarily, I think, really last year's matchup was the growth of the game, the part that really was great for college basketball, women's college basketball, that gave a real boost to the sport and to the brand. And it's been riding that wave all season long with Caitlin Clark, obviously, and stories like Paige Beckers coming back and making it to the Elite Eight. The freshman at USC that'll square off against Paige Beckers tonight. Is it Juju
Watkins.
Juju Watkins. I mean, you've got
South Carolina.
As
undefeated.
big of a night in women's college basketball from a matchup standpoint as they've had probably forever. I mean, when you're talking about Clark and Reese and LSU versus Iowa, to Beckers and USC with Watkins and USC and UConn fighting it out in the late night game. I mean, for women's college basketball, today is a monumental day. And, for LSU, it really feels like going into this one that it almost feels like Rocky in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like where
Just
all year teams, people, media members, talking heads, coaches, opposing teams. I mean, you could see you could feel the disdain, the dislike, the hate for LSU basketball, whether it was Mulkey, whether it was Angel Reese, whether it was Flaugier, whether it was Haley Van Lith, whether it was Michaela Williams, whether it was LSU's assistant coaches, whether it was, I mean, it was easy to recognize that LSU women's basketball felt like public enemy number one when talking about the sport all season long. The scale was different. I mean, we talked about the Stanford player mouthing off to the bench a couple of weeks back. I mean, did you see what Angel Reese did on Saturday? I mean, at what point does UCLA's assistant coach, you're the coach, I mean, if you're going to talk to the players on the floor and then get offended when they talk back to you, how did you get in this position? How does that surprise you? How does that not go into competing? If you're going to talk to her and she puts it in your face on the floor and lets you hear about it, and then you complain and whine that she's a trash talker? I mean, it just like the double standard on LSU, Angel Reese, and the sport, it's like it's exhausting almost. And from like a sub headline tonight, more than anything, that's what I am pulling for. Outside of LSU to win the game, advance, go to another Final Four, have a chance for another national championship with so much on the line, is really and truly to put a halt to this Caitlin Clark hype train and shut everybody up. Really. I mean, like, I'm so over. I mean, Caitlin Clark on her home floor last weekend told the crowd to shut the bleep up. and she's a tough player. Meanwhile, UCLA's assistant coach is telling Angel Reese and barking at her all game long. All game long. And when she fouls out, Reese makes a comment to the bench. And Kerry Close and UCLA with a technical foul for it? I mean, it's just like, it's amazing. I love the fact that Angel Reese talks trash. I love the fact that Flaugier and Michaela Williams let you know about it when they put one in your face, because if LSU's men's basketball team was doing that, we would be praising them. Just like I love when competitors do that on Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, that to me, that is really a glowing mark of somebody who goes in and competes, and having to always go in and qualify it. I saw Angel Reese have to ask and answer again. Yeah, like, look, I don't hate Caitlin Clark. I don't dislike her. But the fact of the matter is when the ball gets tipped up, I don't like anybody.
We ain't friends.
Awesome. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. So I can't wait for this afternoon.